There we go. Hey everybody, welcome to Kyle's Film School. I decided I would just do a little stream myself this morning. I was actually planning on doing it like 2 days ago, but kept getting occupied with other things, mostly moving. It's not going to be too long, it'll be probably like a hour and a half, 2 hours stream. And I thought it might just be fun to go through some of our old projects and answer your guys' questions on how we make different things at different points in the process, whether it's writing or doing special effects or editing or really anything at all. I'll be taking questions from the chat because I'm not super used to doing streams by myself. So, in the interest of avoiding dead air, I will be responding to the chat and answering your guys' questions because that way we're all kind of in it together. And yeah, just going over a bunch of different projects. So I've got After Effects open, I've got Premiere open, I've got my folder full of all our different project files open. We've got raw footage available, we got all sorts of stuff we can go through. We can get your suggestions on which videos to do. Let me know if the music is too loud at any point. And yeah, that's the intro. That's pretty much it. We are currently at $93,600 on our Kickstarter, so that's awesome. Apparently, it's like statistically, any project that hits 60% has there's a 98% of projects that have hit 60% at some point have also completed their project. So that's encouraging. That's a pretty high number. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. We ended up hiring a marketing firm, and they are currently working on trying to spread it outside of the influence of this channel, which will hopefully start helping. They said they've been bringing in some new stuff. They have seen new people coming in, and pledges have started coming in from the new visits. So it's getting there. So we'll see how that ends up doing. Oh, also the video from this week did really well. The Civ video got on the subreddit, and I think got a bunch of new people coming in and checking out the Kickstarter from that, so that's really cool. Let's see, we have a few questions over here. If I'm looking off to the side, it's because I'm looking at the chat. I can actually put it right here on the screen. You can see it there, but I'm gonna have it over here. It is currently morning for me, and yeah, I guess we can just kind of go ahead and get started. So, if you guys have any specific suggestions for or requests for videos you'd like to check out, we can pull up whatever you want. I've got a whole list full of stuff right here. We've got, if we go through After Effects, we've got every single year's worth of special effects video on each of the sketches. We've got all the different timelines from the editing software, and yeah, I'm open to suggestions. I've also got a few that I can just pull up if you guys are interested in just checking out just whatever I happen to have on hand. We have Carson Brown's asking, what's my animation style? Generally uneducated is my animation style. I kind of picked it up on my own. I did a lot of, it was kind of a combination of doing motion tweening, which is when you kind of give the computer a start point and an end point, and it fills in the blanks for you. And I would use that for anything that it looked like simple movements. I didn't really see a reason not to use it because it was a tool that was there and may as well do it. And then I would do frame by frame animation on top of that for anything that couldn't quite be accomplished through that method. Like, doing facial movements. Obviously you have to kind of you have to animate by hand. Anything that moves toward the camera, so like an arm can move like this, and I can just like tell the computer to start it here and then end it here, and it will fill in all the blanks there. But if it moves like this toward the camera, then that changes perspective, so I have to go in and like actually do that each individual frame to make it work that way. Also, I apologize in advance. I have terrible allergies, and I will try to keep them as silent as possible. So let's see. I'm gonna double check the the chat real quick and see if we've got any suggestions so far. We've got XCOM vid, we've got DoodleCon. That might be a good one actually to start with, showing how we did DoodleCon. Portal. I think I won't do Portal today. I actually really love the effects in that video, but I made an entire video just about that. So if you are interested in seeing that one after this, if you go check out the 10K week playlist, it's the videos that we put up when we hit 10,000 subscribers. And there's for, I think for Portal and for Mad Max and for Papers, Please, there are full videos going into detail on how I did the effects for those videos. Also one of the TF2 ones. So I'll probably skip those for this particular stream just to, you know, not repeat myself. But yeah, DoodleCon might be a good one to start with. That's pretty fun. So a lot of this was self-taught. I went to film school. I attended the Art Institute of Austin, which is it's legally a school. There's not a whole lot more to say about it. It was, I don't know if any of you ever watched Community, but it wasn't too much different from that school. Just really, really expensive, and without the whimsical dean, so not all that great. But the people there were good. That's where we met Joey. Really, what I realized the other day actually is that Joey was really expensive. That's what came out of that school. Meeting Joey cost about a school's worth of tuition. Totally worth it, but there was him and some of the teachers and a few other people. Caesar from the video that you just saw this week. Matlock went there with us, or with me. JP also attended there, but after I left. So there were a few people that, a couple of us from the crew went there, and I met a few of the recurring actors that you see in our videos there. But a lot of it was from just teaching myself how to do stuff. Let's see how well I can talk and click on things at the same time, because I'm not doing a very good job of it so far. I believe it's probably this one. Also, I'll probably have to relink files, so that'll be fun. Oops. The majority of what I learned came from doing these videos just for the channel. Like, if you go back and look at the original the Sims videos, that's when we started, is doing the Sims. The Minecraft one actually is a good example for this, since it's special effects. That was my level of special effects at the time, and everything else I just taught myself over the course of making all of these different videos. 1 second, I apologize. I want to focus on actually opening these files real fast, so I apologize for the silence. That's what the music is for. There we go. Hopefully I should just be able to click on this one file, and then we'll find all the other ones. Everything gets moved around so much that eventually, when you try to reopen an old file, it doesn't know where any of the source files are. There we go. Alright, cool. Found it. So this is the After Effects file for the Avatar Bending Battles, Battle of the Bends, something. Whatever. Also, the title usually doesn't get decided until like an hour before we upload it, or the minute I'm uploading it, so the file name will be different than the actual video title. This was a really early example, actually, of me trying to learn something from another channel. I got a lot of my education off of other YouTubers like Corridor Digital and Freddie Wong. I would just go and watch all of their behind-the-scenes videos, and just want to like do what they were doing. And so a lot of times Corridor Digital would show off different special effects that they had developed or, you know, tried to figure out on their own, and I would make an entire video around just wanting to try to recreate that effect, and this was one of them. And that effect created DoodleCon because we did not do it as well as Corridor Digital did. So let's see if I can find that one. This video sucked trying to make. This was so hard. I was 2 days late making this one. It's one of the only ones that I ever haven't released on the day. because of how long the effects ended up taking. Because generating fire is hard, as it turns out. And I had to use a combination of Blender and doing like some... what is it, like particle effects, I think, in After Effects. I'm also noticing that most of these things don't have anything except the base footage on them, which means this is not the right file. That's incorrect. So let me try to find the correct one. In the meantime, Elias Putala is asking, how do you... Wait, where'd it go? How do you get video ideas? That's a really good question. And it's one that gets... I see people ask that question. Like, where do you get inspiration is a question that gets asked, I think, of basically anybody who makes anything. And I personally am almost always unsatisfied with the answer, because nobody ever knows how to answer the question. It's a difficult question to answer. There we go. It is, not something people think about very often, I think. They get into a flow of it, and they don't really have, they don't like analyze their own workflow or anything. I would like during this stream to be able to give you guys like a thing to do anytime you have a question, because I think that's much more useful. It at least gives you something to explore and try out on your own. And in this particular case, I think the thing that I try to do to get video ideas is it's kind of about getting yourself just into a mindset to notice things in day-to-day life. A good analogy that I can think of is if anybody's ever done like or heard of lucid dreaming, there's technically a way to like wake up in your dreams. Most of you have probably experienced it at least once, where you're dreaming, but then you're aware that you're dreaming, but you don't completely wake up. And there's ways to like manually make yourself enter that state a little bit more often. And one of the main ways to do so is just while you're awake every day, checking to see if you're dreaming. So just during the day at random points, you go like, okay, am I dreaming right now? No, cool. And then you keep going about your day. But what that does is it sets it tells your brain that that's like a regular thing to do. So when you're asleep, you'll be dreaming, and then you'll do it in your dream because you just turn it into a habit, and you realize that you are dreaming, and then you can, go on about your flying or battling ninjas or whatever you want to do. It's a similar process for me, actually, when coming up with video ideas. You have to kind of train yourself to, throughout the day, just be like, okay, right now, is there anything in the general vicinity that gives me an idea for making, for a funny sketch, like a video? And sometimes I come up with something and sometimes I don't, but I just do that periodically throughout the day for a few days. And once I've done that, I'll get into kind of like a zone of just noticing things. When funny things happen, I'll think like, oh, I could turn that into something, because the funny things happen regardless of whether or not I'm thinking that. It's just whether or not you notice them. And then the second step of that is just have something to write it down on. So whether that's carrying around a notepad or, like I do, just using a Google Doc on my phone, just record whatever it is you have an idea for. And it doesn't have to be like a very complicated idea. It could just be like, that funny observation could potentially turn into a video. I'm going to write that down on a notepad. And then when it comes time to actually have to use something, you have this whole list that you've built up. Because I used to have all kinds of problems with trying to figure out new ideas. Like, a lot of our videos I came up with the day before we filmed them, because I just ran out. But at this point, I don't really have that problem anymore, because I have this huge Google Docs filled with different things that I can go in and take and then develop that further. And I keep adding to it whenever I come up with, with new things. Alright, let me reload some footage again real fast. Hopefully this entire stream is interesting. I actually don't know if it's going to be. But I figured there would be at least a percentage of people that would be interested in kind of seeing some of the old projects. It's just about whether or not I can remain engaging the entire time. I actually used to teach animation. That was my job for a while. It was very part-time. It was at an art studio. Ethan currently works there. And I would do basically this, but with Flash and different animation techniques. Is this different? Is this... I'm really confused about where I put these effects. This is the second project that I've opened that seems to have nothing in particular in it. Like, these are all the shots, but there's nothing on top of them. What did I do? This was the first suggestion for anyone just joining. Somebody mentioned trying to do the showing off the DoodleCon effect. Maybe it's under cleanup. I figured I'd just... there are 3 projects for this one. I don't remember anything about how I set this project up, except that it was an absolute nightmare. Okay, there we go. 147 files are missing from this one, so that's probably the correct one. Let's see, I've done this twice now. I should have this down. Replace. Linked comp. Oh, right. I used to actually link the compositions from After Effects to Premiere, but that ended up taking up... My computer just couldn't handle that, processing-wise. So instead, I stopped and started just exporting all of my shots and importing those into After Effects instead. Or into Premiere, sorry. Replace footage. No, my music stopped. You're supposed to loop. Alright, 3, 7, 5, 8. That one. And just do the rest so I don't have to do anything, please. Alright, let's check the... Lurum asks if I have a favorite director. I like Edgar Wright a lot, which, you know, who doesn't? But I definitely like his particular style. It's hard to pick out director because their influence isn't always super obvious. It's really just, you know, you have to base it on their line of work and what they've been involved in. I really like Jon Favreau, actually. He did Iron Man and Elf, and a lot of just weird kind of hodgepodge of things that I've enjoyed over my life. Let's see. Hopefully this entire stream is not hugely... like doesn't just turn into this of me trying to find missing footage, because that would not be good. Action Essentials. Okay, that might be where most of it is. Apologies, guys. 1 second. I'm just gonna... see if that loads up a little bit more. A lot of things that we can pull up are also will be newer, so it won't take quite as much of this as a step. Let's see. We've got. How do you? Kate is asking, how do you obtain music rights? That is, you can do it in a variety of ways. What we use is something called Epidemic Sound. It's you can find companies online that just have a library of royalty-free music, so they're the middleman between... Oh, come on. All right, the DoodleCon one might not work, which kind of makes sense. You know what I'll do instead? I don't want to disappoint, so I'm gonna pull up in Blender and I'll show you at least the original like rendering of DoodleCon, because I know that won't destroy itself at the very least. But yeah, for general music, there are different companies you can access online, and you can pay them usually like a monthly fee or something, and you can use any of the music within their libraries. For bigger projects, music licensing gets really complicated sometimes, actually, because it's like a different license if you want to cover the song or if you just want to use the music, and it depends on how much you're using it. For the guards themselves specifically, we just had a connection to this band, and they were very nice and let us use all their music for free for anything in relation to the guards themselves. It was extremely lucky, and we got that just through our audio guy had mixed their music and knew who they were, and that's pretty much how they worked. Knowing people helps a lot, just kind of like having connections, which is really annoying. Because I don't like going out and talking to people, so I never did the whole socializing, learning how to rub elbows with people and do all that. Joey did, and I met Joey, and so that helped a lot, because it just kind of fixed that extra step. But you can also just contact people. Like most people have agents. If you want like really well-known musicians, or more like well known enough to have, you know, a system in place, you can contact them and you can ask them, and you know, they'll charge money, but there are systems set up to license music. Most of the time you can't do it for free because people don't want to sell their art for free. You shouldn't either, for the most part. But there are ways to, you know, to get in touch with people, and it's usually just asking for permission and seeing what people's terms are. Let's see. Oh, great. Alright, so here's the start of it. Okay, this is something. I can at least give you guys something. So this looks like the original 3D scan of Ian, actually. I didn't know I still had this. This is... So the way this effect worked was there's a software you can use with the Xbox Microsoft Kinect, and you can, like, basically just circle around people and it will scan them because the Kinect sees things in 3D. This is Ian and a chunk of my old room that I used to edit in, that it happened to capture along with him. Basically you can pay, if you pay for the software we used, you get a full resolution scan, but we didn't have any money at the time, like, at all. So we didn't do that. We used the free version, which only exports really low resolution models. And this is what we came out with. If you go watch, Quarter Digital has a video where they show off the same thing, and theirs turn out much more impressive, and they managed to fully texture it with the camera itself. I ended up having to, I think, construct a texture out of photographs that I took, because we recorded this of Ian in the house. It took forever. He had to stand, like, perfectly still with his arm out the whole time. I scanned it so that we had half of it, and then what I ended up doing was cutting it in half and then duplicating that half and flipping it over, which resulted in probably one of these. Yeah, there we go. So that's what it turned into. That's why it looks the way that it does, because it's actually one half of Ian mirrored, and also significantly cleaned up. I patched up all the holes and made sure that it was, you know, usable as a 3D model. And then the next step was to, at some point I textured it, and the texture it looks like if you've ever unwrapped a Sims texture or like a video game texture, you had to create that whole, like, weird stretched out, like, flattened skin thing that can then be wrapped around the 3D model. And the only way I could figure out how to do that was just taking photographs of Ian. We went outside, he wore the same outfit and the same light, and I just took pictures of him and then had to reconstruct this monstrosity of a texture inside of Photoshop and then wrap it around the final product. Which is, where is this? 3D view? I can't see anything. There we go. So I think this is the actual file. So I rigged him up. I put a skeleton in there, which is something I hadn't ever done before and haven't done since, actually, because we needed him to kind of flop around. The reason it was so low resolution is because we just didn't need it to be anything else. Like, he's just being thrown against a wall at high speed. It was going to be blurred. All you needed was a vague Ian shape that was vaguely Ian colors that could be thrown around and, you know, bounce off of stuff. And for that purpose, it worked, like, perfectly well. The reason it turned into such a big thing is because we just showed it off on a community comments one week, because because by itself it looked hilarious. I think if I hit rendered, it will actually show it with the, yeah, there it is with the texture and everything. So I have this whole 3D model and can actually export this just at any point, and that's what I did for sticking it into other videos as well. I would just change the lighting and the angle and send it out to be put into a different After Effects project. But the way this one in particular worked, if I switch back to object mode, oh wait, wrong one, sorry, solid, yeah. And then I have all these things that I've hidden, because I had to rebuild, so this is all invisible because I didn't want to export it. I think that's it. But I built this whole structure back behind him to imitate my house and the garage, and then the neighboring house right here that was behind him in that shot. I think if I, position the camera over it here, you can possibly see I took a screenshot of the video and overlaid it. But I'm not sure if you can actually see that anymore, or if maybe if I turn that on. No, it doesn't look like it's in there. But essentially, I took a screenshot from the video, I overlaid it into the background, and then I used these boxes to approximate the actual position of the house and where that would be. It was, it's very kind of done by hand. It wasn't super scientific or anything, but I think I got pretty close. And if we had I think if we have a timeline, this whole thing is I've made a mess of this. Is this a timeline? You can actually see the movement of him if I can manage to pull up the. I use Blender so infrequently that whenever I get around to like going back to it, I have to relearn some things, which is kind of annoying. There he goes. So I think what I did was actually throw an invisible ball at him. I think that's what happened. Like he's just because he's standing there and then he flies backward. I'm pretty sure what I did is I made him this kind of loose approximation of a person, and then just like launched some kind of invisible object at its head, and then he flies backward. And yeah, there it is. You can see it right there. I don't know why he disappears right there. Anyway, that's generally how DoodleCon was made, and then I exported that from inside here, completely transparent background, and then was able to work that into the After Effects composition, which I am not able to show you right at the moment, and I apologize for that, because the files were not loading. But I should be able to do it with other ones and show you guys how I did some of the other special effects, so we can take some other suggestions. I'll answer some comments real quick. You guys can all see these, I think, now. Let's see, there were a few other questions up here. See if I can find any. Kate saying she'd like to see some raw footage. I can also actually pull up a few, some of the raw footage from the video. Let's see, Avatar. Am I just missing it? Oh, there it is, After a Bending Battle. So this video was also shot by somebody else with a different camera. We have, there was the camera operator on the guards themselves is Eve. She made, she shot all of the guards themselves and then also shot a couple of our videos, which were the Gary's Mod one and this one. And we used a different camera, so they looked a little bit different than what we made at the time. And it was just helpful having somebody on set that knew what they were doing. This one, I wish I could show you the effects from this one, because it's I was actually really happy with some of them. This particular green oh geez, that's loud. This particular green screen shot was one of my favorites that we've ever done, because it just turned out so well. It's because we got me in front of the in the same lighting. So when I combined them together, it just matched up super well. This is the one of me jumping into the air and then blowing at the ground and keeping myself aloft. And this is literally what we did. We have somebody, I don't even know, somebody's behind me holding this green screen up. And then this is just a workshop table that my dad had with some more green cloth draped over it. And I just had to imitate my midair movements in this, so I start standing, and then I jump and land on the table, and act like, I'm up in the air, and then just kind of slide back off to land on the ground again, and then in the final shot, I just animate myself going up to, to make the whole flying into the air look. And yeah, I was really happy with how that one turned out. And then, for anybody who hasn't seen it, there should be a... Do I have finished visual effect? Yeah, there we go. Oh, jeez. I don't know what any of these are. Gotta give me thumbnails, Windows. It could be absolutely any of these, I have no idea. It's not that one. But yeah, that turned into the shot that I'm sure you've seen with me jumping up in the air and catching myself via breath. There it is. There we go. Cool. And yeah, I think this is probably one of the more seamless green screens I've ever done. One thing that helps is that you can see me landing on the ground, which I was able to do because in the original shot, my feet actually do land on the ground, so I was able to just use that footage and not have to, like, work out a weird way to make my feet look like they were touching the ground when they weren't really. So yeah, I think that's probably good on that video. If anybody else wants to suggest other videos, feel free to just keep throwing suggestions out this whole time, actually, and I'll just, like, try to pull stuff up and just kind of reminisce. If you have specific questions about any part of filmmaking, if you know, if you're a filmmaker, if you're trying to do your own videos, if you have questions about how to do things, that's what this stream is for. I'm happy to just kind of answer whatever, and just kind of have a chat with you guys about how to do different things, and share my experience for the most part. Like, again, it's, everything I've done is self-taught, but I think, honestly, that's really kind of how you learn film and most art. I think it comes from doing it. I think film school can have value sometimes, but just kind of getting into it and working on it is the most important thing. It's there's one of the things that I learned really early on, or one of the things that I did not learn early on that I had to learn later, is that when you first start, you're going to make bad things, and it's both okay and important that you do that, because that's what lets you start making good things afterwards. And I didn't know that at the time. I was very much of the mindset, like, I need to get this perfect, and so it took us forever to do anything, because it was like on Gary the Misanthrope and all of the I think Zucchini and Rhubarb, you know, all those old videos that you've seen. I spent way too long on any of those, and looking back on them now, like, I'm fond of them and I think they turned out good, and, you know, I have, like, obviously nostalgic appreciation of them, but they are objectively not as good as the stuff that we do now, despite all the effort that I put in. And I think, like, if I had one thing to do differently, it would have been to just dive in and just make bad stuff. Because the faster you make the bad stuff that you have, like, there's a pile of bad stuff you have to get through when you're starting to make things. And the faster you get through it, the faster you can get started making good stuff. So I think the most valuable thing you can do is actually just jump in and start make yourself do it. Don't just, you know, wait for the opportunity. Like, decide, I'm going to go out this week and make a video, and I'm going to have it, and it's going to be finished, and it doesn't matter how good it's going to be, I'm going to call it done, and I'm going to have that product done. And then move on. Do the next thing. Don't spend too long on any one project. Ooh, that was weird. Any one project, because if you do, then you're just kind of wasting time eventually. It's, you know, there's a point of diminishing return where the longer you spend on something, the less you're actually going to add to it. You know, like, once the first 90% of the video comes within like a relatively small percentage of the work. Kind of like if you're doing a special effect and you want to add an explosion, dropping in the explosion stock footage completes most of that process, right? The explosion is now there. It wasn't previously. Now it is. You can then, you know, track the explosion in, makes it look way better, and that will, you know, maybe finish up another 8% of the work, because now it's an explosion that looks good. And then you can spend time doing the, you know, making, like, adjustments to the lighting to make it look like it's fitting in there better, which will add a little bit, like, you know, it incrementally increases the quality of it, but smaller and smaller increments every time, whereas the amount of time you're spending on each one increases. So there's a certain point where you just kind of have to call it done and put it out and learn from that project so that you can move on to the next one and do it a little bit better, a little bit faster. Looks like we got some questions in, so I'm going to go ahead and answer some of those. Calibrinus with a side of cube says, was Gary the Misanthrope a homework project? It actually was. It was an idea that we already had. Me and Ian came up with it. And then, like, the following week in one of my editing classes, my teacher said we needed to edit a montage. So I just did that because we already had it ready to go. All of my best schoolwork came from things that I already wanted to do anyway. And that was one of them, and we already had this whole thing in mind, and that was the motivation I needed to actually get it done. Otherwise, God knows when we would have made that video, because again, I was too focused on just making things look perfect. But because I had a deadline set for me, and used that deadline for the sake of that video, we were able to get that done within like a couple of weeks, I think. Let's see. Alright, I'm gonna check for some... The music stopped again. I'm gonna check for some more questions. Let's see. Molly says, I'm currently working on a film for school and was not able to use a tripod for most of my shots. What would you use to stabilize shaky footage? I know warp stabilizer exists in After Effects. So if you have already gotten the shots and they are and you need to stabilize them, there's a few different ways to stabilize footage. So in my experience, if it gets too shaky, warp stabilizer actually doesn't help all that much, which is frustrating. I kind of hoped it would help more than it did. But if it's the general rule is if it's just handheld, warp stabilizer works like miraculously. If you can get a hold of it, I think it's totally worth it. If your shots just kind of like move a little bit, if they kind of sway the way that, you know, like the office style camera, you can usually apply the After Effects warp stabilizer to that, and that will smooth it out like completely solid, or at least smooth the motion enough to where it looks intentional. If it's jittery, that becomes a problem. You can actually see that issue in one of our videos. Let me pull one up actually just to show you guys a difference, because we have for example, it was a Civ video. Scout's Honor? No, the other Scout one. What was that one called? Civ 5. Dibs on the Ruins. That's what it was. Dibs on the Ruins. So we have our opening shot was when we were running. We were trying to run with the camera, and that's very difficult to do, and actually keep the camera going.
Go for it.
Oh, there's Ian. So we have this was a shot we were trying to create of, you know, like tracking along with her as she was running. I'm running with the camera, and it's just bouncing all over the place. And I was thinking I'll be able to run this through warp stabilizer and that will work fine.
Yeah.
The issue is that warp stabilizer honestly can even do some pretty impressive things, but if the camera is shaking so much that there's motion blur in it, it can't get rid of that. So what you end up with is the let's see, opening shots. This is probably it. If we skip past this part, so if you watch this shot, you can see it doing this weird thing where it will like suddenly like blur, like you can see the motion blur of the camera moving even though the camera isn't moving, and it becomes really obvious that you actually used a stabilizer on it. So unfortunately, if your footage looks like that, there isn't a whole lot warp stabilizer can do at that point. I would personally just, at this point, if that's what I had to work with, I would try to just embrace the shaky cam aspect of it and use it as best that I could at that point, because I think adding the warp stabilizer actually makes it look worse. Now, if it's just a little bit like bumpy, it will actually still work pretty well. And the first time I used it was on I Am Bread, and I was amazed at some of the shots that it just totally smoothed over, because it didn't make any sense. There's the opening shot of the camera just panning across the bread. I think it's this one. So I actually shot this one entirely by myself. Like, this was me at home, my family was out, and I was just throwing bread around in my living room. And I think to get this one, what I tried to do was set the camera and tripod on top of a skateboard and slide it across the ground to try to get this done smoothly. And it didn't work very well. You can kind of see it's like, I'll start it and I'll be moving it, but it like jumps, because it kept getting hung up on a rug. So I would like move it a little bit and it would stop, so I had to like force it a little bit more. And it's not actually a smooth transition. But if you go to the effects afterwards and see if I can find the right one. I don't know why it's not showing me the thumbnail for an MOV file specifically, just any of the effects files. It's not actually giving me a preview of. Just making this difficult. There we go. So this is it after the stabilizer has been applied. Well, the video's hanging up, so it's kind of ruining my point, but there we go. See, completely smooth over. All those individual jumps completely gone. Have no idea why. But I think the main thing to avoid is motion blur within the frame. So that was a very long explanation for your question. Hopefully that helped. I apologize to everybody else for going into that much detail about it. But that's just kind of hopefully a quick comparison of like what, you know, using the warp stabilizer on different kinds of footage. Ideally, what we've learned is that it's best to try to stabilize your footage in person as much as possible, which obviously is kind of difficult sometimes because stabilizers cost money. If you have a small enough camera like a DSLR, you can actually get pretty cheap ones now that are just single, like handheld, that you can attach it to and kind of smooth it out. Or a tripod, obviously, also helps. But yeah, after the fact, there are still things you can do. Warp stabilizer helps if there's not too much motion blur, and if there is, there are other ways to you know, to at least try to compensate for it. Let's see. SP1TE is asking what editing software I'm using. I use the entire Adobe suite, so we have After Effects open right now. I also have Premiere, and I switch back and forth between those two. At the moment, for anybody just joining, I'm just kind of going through some old projects, pulling open After Effects project files, kind of showing off how I did some different effects. I'm taking suggestions, and doing my best to also read off as many questions as I can. Aiden Miles asks, how would you suggest finding actors? So if you don't have friends you can exploit, it does get a little bit more difficult. We use a website actually called shortfilmtexas.com. It's local to us, but I'm sure other states could have similar systems set up where you can go on and you can place casting calls online. You can say that they're free, that they're not paid, and describe the project and say who you need, and you can get people emailing you and applying to be in different projects. And we've used that for Civilization. Some of the leaders that we had in, we cast through that website. We used it for the guards themselves pretty heavily. When it comes to not having money or credibility, or maybe being in a state that doesn't actually have a huge film scene to play off of, I think that actually is where film school does come in handy. If anything, film school is helpful for making connections and meeting people, and that's probably when I would suggest it most, is if you happen to be in a place where there just isn't an environment for doing that, and you don't have people around who want to just come act in your stuff. Finding a film school is basically just finding a location where everybody does want to do that, and you all help each other make the things that you're trying to make. And those are all the best. I'm glad I went to film school stories are usually about that. If you hear other film YouTubers talking about their positive film school experiences, it's usually because they went there and they met the people they're currently working with. And we had a similar experience ourselves. Let's see. Emma asked, does doing still photography help in the learning curve of doing anything film related? I think so. This would actually be a great question for Allison, because that's how she started, was as a photographer. She really didn't have any experience in film until we brought her on and she started doing stuff for us. But it helped a lot. She brought in a lot of knowledge that we don't really pay attention to, because there's plenty of things that do transition between the two, like color, like basic, composition, lighting, just having an idea of what makes an image look good on camera, like what makes a good image as opposed to what doesn't. There are some things, though, that I, like, because I work with her just kind of personally whenever we're doing these different projects, and we were just, I think just recently, actually, I realized that there were a bunch of stuff that I just hadn't even explained how to do, because I learned them really early on, and now they're really second nature. So things like, when it comes down to movement or like film space, you know, like showing the audience the space that the scene exists in, that isn't as intuitive when you come from a photography background, because you're just dealing with one set image. And film is usually about movement and about showing a three-dimensional space in 2 dimensions, and, you know, trying to make a representation of that. So there's definitely a few things you miss out on, but I think it's a great starting point, because I didn't start from there, and our early stuff looks not good. A lot of our early stuff actually looks like animations, because that's where I came from, so it looks like a background with 2 people just standing there talking to each other, very similar to my old work. And it's improved greatly in the past few months, as you may have noticed, specifically because she came on and knew all this information that we didn't. And I knew enough about film space to, you know, we could work together and together create one full knowledge of filmmaking. So yes, I do think it's helpful. Let's see. In regards to Skyvault, Hope is asking, would we still be able to give money after the month if we don't get enough? If we don't hit our goal, we unfortunately will have to postpone the project. We need the full amount to be able to make it, so it's unlikely that we'll be able to make up the $150,000 difference if we don't reach our goal at the end of the month, unfortunately. If we do reach our goal, we can then accept more, but it all depends on whether or not we hit it. Kate asks, how do you get used to hearing your own voice on a recording over and over? You just have to hear your own voice on a recording over and over. There's no way around it. You have to endure the pain. That's all. That's the only way to do it. The only reason I'm finally, like, okay with hearing and seeing myself is because I've edited so many things with me in them, because I didn't have a choice. Actually, kind of like answering the acting question from before too. If you can't get your hands on actors, you just kind of use yourself. That's actually where self-fulfilling idiocy came from. I didn't have enough people, and I needed to make something with just me. So I did the whole video of duplicating myself playing every single part. But yeah, I completely understand the hatred of seeing everything you do like on screen. It's you become very, very self-conscious very fast, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I actually think I've made a lot of improvements to my my self-presentation in both my speaking and in just like my body language and posture and different things, just because I had to stare at myself so much. But you just kind of have to grit your teeth and work your way through it, and eventually it stops bothering you as much. It's just an exposure thing, because everyone hates their voice, everyone hates the way they look when they first start doing it. Elfreli's asking, how about your proudest VFX shot? That's a good question. You know what? I actually really liked some of the ones from the tavern video. I could pull that one up probably and not have too much trouble opening it, just to actually get back into showing you guys something. I hope this is interesting. I thank you all for joining. We have 180 people watching right now. I appreciate you guys showing up. Hopefully this is valuable information or interesting in some way to you guys. Let me give you a little bit more something to look at here. I'm going to find the D&D Tavern video, which was 2017? D&D Tavern, yeah, there it is. So hopefully this is new enough that all the files will just be in there. And I can show you guys how I did some of the effects. Joris Morecamps asks, how have you improved yourself as an actor? Honestly, a lot of that has also just been repetition. I really am kind of interested in taking some acting classes now that I've done it as much as I have. because I feel like I have enough. I'm comfortable enough now that I can kind of do it on my own, but I'd be curious to then like hear from a professional on like ways to improve. Editing yourself helps a lot because when you're staring at your like you can it's you're scrutinizing yourself every single time you make a video, so you're picking out things like I need to do that better, that face looks weird, I need to be careful not to do that anymore. It's honestly not like a super traditional way of improving acting or learning acting. It's very kind of like nitpicky and precise, like scientific almost. Which I think in general probably doesn't produce necessarily good acting, but it at least helps you get more comfortable and understand what you look like on camera. I'll do things now, like I'll make faces occasionally, or like say certain things, and in my head I can see myself as I look doing that. Like I know what I look like doing certain things right now. I know what my face looks like every single expression that I make right now at this moment without looking at myself on screen over here, because I've seen myself do all of it enough that I'm just familiar with it. Let's see. Nathan says, I heard there's a bunch of people who want to donate, but Kickstarter won't let them. Anything you can think to do about that? There's a few methods you can use to donate currently. There's something called Stripe, which is basically PayPal, but different. If you're willing to make a Stripe account, you can donate through that, because Kickstarter does accept it. They also accept prepaid cards, so if you go to a local store and buy like a prepaid credit card for the amount you want to donate, and then use that number, they will also accept that. It's a little bit inconvenient if you are, interested enough in donating to the project that you're willing to do that. I very much appreciate it, even more than anybody else, just because you went through the extra effort. Anything else where you have to, like any other methods, we have to wait until we hit our goal to introduce, because if we don't hit our goal, we have to refund everything, and it's more difficult to do that outside of Kickstarter, because Kickstarter doesn't actually charge people until the goal is hit in the first place. College of Celiac says, dang, seems I'm here pretty late. No, it's totally fine. We're still going. I'm still going to be going for a little bit longer, I think. I will be uploading the video afterwards for anybody who's missed the beginning of it, but please feel free to continue asking questions or asking to see certain videos. Anyway, I'm going to do this real quick. I'll get back to the questions in just a minute. I want to go over some of the effects in here, because I am actually really proud of all of these. The Ethan's effects in particular, I was super happy with in this video. I spent a long time beforehand actually figuring out how to do it. Watching The Lord of the Rings, I learned about all the different ways they did the Hobbit effects, and they're insane. Like some of the things that they do. Lord of the Rings does all of these stupid ideas you would come up with to do a special effect because they have the money to pull it off, but they're not actually any more complicated than what you would think of. Like there was one shot where they're walking through a town road, and there's people walking around them, and it's a wide shot. You can see the miniature people just walking through the town, and they're walking in and out of people and bumping into them, and it's like there's no way to fake that almost. And the way that it's like if you needed to do that, if you needed to have we need some of these people to be small and walk through a group of big people, and it needs to be a really wide shot, so we can't use any trick photography. How do we do that? And somebody in that meeting was like, what if we make real giant people to walk around the normal sized people? And somebody else was like, yes, that is a good way to spend our money. And they did that. They have entire rigs of people on stilts with long oversized clothing on them, animatronic fleshy hands sticking out the end of the sleeves, and rubber masks obscured by wigs and hair and things, walking around these normal sized people so that they look like hobbits. And it's ridiculous, and I love it so much. And so I wanted to try to recreate something similar to the best of my abilities, obviously with much less money and resources. What I'm trying to do here is find the original footage. Let's see, tavern. So I had to very carefully plan this one out to make sure that it worked. We started with So to start with, we'll cover the clip of everybody walking up to the bar, because that's one of my personal favorites. You can see everybody at different sizes walking up and then interacting with the bar top counter, which is really important actually to selling an effect. If you can make the effect interact realistically with the environment, it makes it look significantly more realistic. So we started with this shot right here. This is at Night Watch, which we actually should be using to do our Pathfinder or our Starfinder stream this Saturday. And we just had Allison and Pork here, and then at first I tried using Stan just to in case it cast a shadow on them, because I couldn't tell. I ended up not using that because it wasn't necessary. But we have this shot of them walking forward. Walk forward. Anyway, yeah, you get the idea.
My God, you're right.
And I dragged Stan along there. Again, just in case he cast a shadow on people. I don't think it ended up happening.
Yeah, that looks good.
Then we got this shot here, I think. Oh, wait, no, that's the wrong one. On one of these shots, me and Ethan held up the bar and had them walk up to it again so that we could get the reflection
Or maybe you can
of them in the top of the bar, because I needed to use that when they walked up, because as you saw, the bar wasn't actually in their shot. So I had to have them walk over, like, and up to the camera, just holding this here so that we could get, like, you can see where there's a reflection of it down here when she walks up. And then we have this shot completely separate, where we put the bar in there as high as it would be on Ethan. He kind of crouches a little bit, stands in front of a green screen, and then does the whole walking up thing in the same light. And then using that footage, we come out with this whole setup. Where we have reconstructed this bar entirely. I can actually just kind of go through and show you guys like the individual layers. So the whole thing was just constructed out of like different segments of the bar that I took, with each person's reflection in it. I blended them together with this middle one for Ethan. We have Ethan as an actual element right there, just as a green screen element that we keyed out and put in place. Behind him, there's a shadow on the table, just to make it a little bit more look. Again, the more that it interacts with the scene, the better it looks. And I think that's the. Oh yeah, the other thing that I did that I don't think anybody noticed was I added little like magic glowing orbs to these lights to hide the fact that they were electric lights. So they kind of have like a sparkle to them. And then any chance I got, I also made the candles in the background flicker, because they aren't real candles, they're also electric. Yep. Cool. And then, right, also all of this ended up being, I think, combined together anyway. I think I used a different, like, one half of the shot from one take, and then one half of the shot from the other take. So I've got Allison as one shot, Pork as another shot. Those are both blended together, Ethan stuck in the middle, and then the bar is built in front of them out of the different pieces of the bar that we used. And then you end up with the with this whole scene. Let's see. Nick asks, do you look back on your early stuff and cringe, or is it more being proud of your progress? I honestly don't really have too much, like, cringing at old stuff at this point. I don't know why your table just disappeared there. It's mostly, I'm pretty proud of the stuff that we finished and then, you know, moved on to make better things. There's a few, like, performances of mine that I look at and don't really like all that much. So there's definitely a couple like really early videos that I don't necessarily like rewatching. But at a point, I'm actually able to go back and kind of appreciate the videos more now than I used to be. because they were sometimes so hard to work on. I would just get sick of them by the time I was done. I didn't want to watch it anymore at the moment. Actually, that's usually what it is. I don't like going back and watching things within like the next day after I finish something. I cannot go look at it again. I'm just so done with it, and I've picked out everything that's wrong with it. I just like know all the issues, and I'm just like, people are gonna not like this, and they're gonna find all these different problems with it, and nobody's gonna watch it. And so I don't watch it during that first week. But I can come back a year later and then watch it and then be like, hey, that's pretty funny. I did all right. That turned out okay. So it's kind of the opposite for me, actually. Yoon's avatar asks, well, with you just discussing viewing yourself and trying to change your responses because of that, how do you adjust for that tendency to be your own worst critic? I think, if I understand the question correctly, like, how do you not... There are definitely times where I've had trouble making things because of being overly critical of them. I think it's... for me, it's just been being able to view each new project as a new opportunity to try it again. Because I've had times where I have finished videos and they haven't turned out the way that I wanted. Doing it every single week actually really helped that when I first started, because I could be really disappointed, but I couldn't be disappointed for long because I had to get started. Like, there was another week coming, there was like, okay, well, that one didn't work, and I could sit here and be bummed about it, but I have to make the next one because Monday is 7 days away. So I would just jump right onto the next one, and I would be like, okay, well, this one's going to be good. This one won't have the same problems. I'm going to make sure that I fix that from last time. I think it really all just kind of contributes to the method of improving, basically, the growth, the learning, the being able to make improvements after every single attempt. You kind of have to have a little bit of... You have to be able to judge yourself enough to understand what you did wrong, but then also give yourself deadlines so that you don't have enough time to dwell on it, I think is what it is. Let's see if there's any more effects in this one to show off. My music is not playing yet again. I'm sure there's a way to loop this, and I thought I had set it up, but apparently I didn't. This one was kind of interesting because this room doesn't look like that. It's see if I just delete the mask, if that does it. Yeah, so this is the room that we shot the bar in. This is actually a room that they use for playing D&D games, and it's just a room with a table and like a shelf, like a whole cabinet in the background. And Allison's idea was actually to put these bottles on there because she thought it would make it look like a bar, and it totally does. We just took the stuff off of the shelves, lined these bottles up, and then got real close on the table, which is a completely different surface from what we used for the bar in the previous shot. And behind it, I masked this thing out. Probably had to track that mask in by hand. And let me undo this to the point. There we go. And added this entirely separate shot into the background from a different part of the store with me in it. And then I think this bar top I cobbled together out of like different pieces of the main bar, like right around here. I just like took different chunks of it and then stitched them together to create the rest of this bar top going back into the distance here. And it totally works. Like, even this shot right here, close up, like looks like a bar really well just because of those bottles, which is a nice touch. It was a good idea. This one is another one that I'm actually really proud of, because we had to shoot Ethan completely separately again. The whole idea was trying to shoot completely separate pieces of footage that could then interact with each other. Which one of these is actually Ethan's shot? Is it this one? There we go. So this is the shot of Ethan actually sitting normal size at the table. We got him a slightly bigger cup. We went and bought 3 normal size, like several cups of the same size, and then one identical one, slightly scaled up. And so his scale was based around actually this one shot of changing the cup size. Once we had that, we shot the rest of it separately. So this whole thing was done with the actors pretending Ethan was sitting there. And then at some point during this, Rachel comes in. I edited Ethan in with a green screen the same way that I did in all the other scenes. And that by itself wasn't too difficult. Again, him sitting here on the table, if I remove the background, you can see that I actually left... There we go. I left some of the table in there, so you can still see his arms hitting, like resting on the table. You can see a little bit of their reflection and their shadow in there. But the real trick came with him grabbing the glass. So right here, we have him reaching for it, and that glass is still the regular size glass that she just set down. So he's not reaching for anything right there. If his hand connected with that glass, it wouldn't, because they're different pieces of footage. But we timed it just right, so that as he reaches for it and his hand passes behind it, we've got Porg's arm coming up right here, and at that exact frame, I believe, it switches to be his larger cup, which he then grabs and pulls backward. And it worked really well, actually. The cups, like, they're not perfect. I think the scale is a little bit off. Like the bigger cup was like slightly more tall than it was wide, so it doesn't exactly match. But it does well enough that for the most part, I don't think a lot of people noticed. We had a few people noticing in the comments, but I was actually more just proud that that people were catching on to the cool effect than noticing that you know, it didn't feel like it was cheap. I think it worked very, very well, and I was glad people were seeing what we did. So yeah, that one in particular I'm really proud of. And I think that was probably the most complicated. This one was very similar to the ones I've basically already shown. We had, if I just kind of hide all of these. So this is the base shot. We had a microphone there to record their audio. I removed the microphone by using another shot of the blank background. If you're doing special effects, always get a blank background. Even if you don't think you're going to need one, just always get a blank background. It's so much extra work having to try to remove something from a background than if you just have the blank to patch it over. It makes your life significantly easier, and it's way less effort to just get one while you're on set than to try to make up for it later. And then we've got, let's see, what else do we have? What's the next step is, alright, so then we have the footage of Ethan, which is very similar to what we've already been showing. Just a shot of him at the table, normal sized. I think he was walking on his knees though to make it like, you know, the height match up. He was a trooper for that because he has like knee problems, so it was really, it was not comfortable, but he did it, and I just walked behind him holding this green screen. The green screen is gray at the moment because I removed the green so that there isn't any kind of like green splash on it or any obvious green left over in the image. Where'd he go? There we go. So you might notice also as he reaches over that his hand disappears. A lot of times if there's an overlap, you have to go in and mask around those parts individually. So right here, this is just the green screen. I cut around it. There's probably a mask in there where you can kind of see where I had to. This line around here is marking the area that's actually being shown of that footage. So his arm gets cut off. But all you have to do is go in, and one of these things should be, I added the map in on the table there separately, and then when he reaches for it, added his arm, so that when he actually reaches all the way over, you can still see his hand passing in front of me. And then after that, the only thing missing is there's really dramatic lighting in here, so we needed a shadow. So I went in, I think just used the green screen footage and like positioned it, made it completely black silhouette, and then just kind of, I think, used like 3-dimensional adjustments, like position adjustments and rotation, to make it look like it was up against the wall. And it just kind of follows him as he moves, because it's moving. It's the same footage, so it's moving the same way that that he is. And yeah, I think it came together pretty convincingly. I again kept a piece of the table right here, so you can see the white of his jacket, or of his shirt, reflected there in the table. College of Celiac is asking, how easy was it to chroma key that gray, given it's pretty close to the... Oh, he's asking for the color. Again, it actually was green. There's a thing that I do as part of my keying process where I have the matte in its own composition, and then I have the footage in a separate one, where I remove the green from the image. So this is the original footage with the actual green screen, but I make sure to take it away so that there isn't green splash left over on the image. Let's see. Gonna check for some more questions real quick. CJK asks, what's the most fun part of what you do? That's a really good question, because it's all really fun. Honestly, I love all of it, and it's why I do it. It's like, I had a period in my life at some point where I finished school, and a lot of it was just kind of a big transition period in my life. A lot of stuff happened, but I got to a point where I just didn't really have any particular like goal in anymore. Like I graduated school early, and I came out the end of it just not knowing what I was supposed to do next. It was a very weird experience. It was like I ended up graduating high school a year early, and then I went to a 3-year college, so I got done 2 years earlier than anybody else that I knew. And it felt like going down a really long like water slide that was dictating where you're supposed to go, coming out the end and just being in an open field with nothing around you, and just being like, guys, there's nothing over here. I don't know what to do now. And I just kind of had this whole year of just not having any particular direction. There wasn't a grade to graduate. There wasn't like a thing to do next. It was just like, okay, next step is get a job. Yeah, then what? That's it. You just go for the rest of your life. Just you have a job, and then you do that, and then you die. And that wasn't appealing at all. So I did a lot of like soul searching and trying to figure out what I wanted, and I realized what I wanted more than anything out of life was I liked creating things, and I liked spending time with my friends. So if I could spend every single day making stuff with my friends, then I would be happy and successful. And I did that, so I'm good. Like, I literally, in my mind, have achieved what I've wanted out of life, and I get to do that every single day, and everything else is just a bonus. So all these ridiculous projects, being able to start Skyvault and trying to, earn money for that, and just making bigger and bigger things, it's why I'm honestly not super worried about Skyvault not making it all the way through. It'll be disappointing. I do like the story, and I want to make it, and we'll make it regardless. It'll just be, a year later or something when we can afford it. But if it doesn't work, I've got all this other stuff that I want to work on. It doesn't actually change the fact that I get to wake up every day and make something with my friends. I don't remember the question I was answering, but there's my brief summary of the last few years of my life. Mike asks, do you use Blender at all or strictly After Effects? I do use Blender sometimes. I'm not an expert with it by any means, but I use it to supplement certain scenes. Like, there are some things After Effects can't do. So when I need to create something like the faster than light ship flying through the air at the beginning of that video, or more detailed fire effects or different things like that, I do use Blender for creating some of those things. But I use it so infrequently I have to relearn it every single time, so it's difficult to like, I try not to use it because I don't know how to use it, and every time I use it I have to relearn how. But if I used it more often, I don't know, it's a loop that I just don't really ever manage to get out of. I would like to learn how to do 3D stuff more often, personally. I think that about covers it for this video in particular. This one is very similar to the Ethan effects that I showed you, just with Jeffrey instead. We just recorded each of them in front of their own respective backgrounds. Jeffrey's got a... There we go, a big green screen behind him. He actually looks really tiny even in this shot, though. The camera's perspective kind of worked in this one, I think. It helped out a lot. Ooh, that's a lot of talking. All right. Mercer Virus asked, did you take a video tech class that helped you helped you get headway into filming? I think is what there were classes at the Art Institute that did introduce me to After Effects, and that helped. After Effects has a really steep learning curve, actually. You spend the first few months of using it just not having any idea what you're doing. It feels so slow and clunky when you first start. It's actually really difficult to figure out. Eventually, once you kind of have an idea of, like... It's really like, it's learning how to fix everything that goes wrong. Because After Effects is so complicated that you can accidentally click a button or do something without even realizing it, and it just ruins your entire day because you don't know how to undo it, because you don't know what you did. And the first few months are just learning how to reverse all the problems you cause in trying to use the software. Eventually you figure that out, and then you don't have to actually focus on that anymore and can just focus on making effects. But it feels like a slog getting through After Effects. It's totally worth it, but it's difficult to do. You definitely have to, like, set time aside to make it work. Luke asks, what kind of new techniques are you excited to explore in Skyvault? So we actually have the laser effect of them, launching off into space is, I did my best to approximate what that will probably look like in the trailer, but that's not even kind of the final version of what that will be. There's a lot of programs I haven't even touched on yet when it comes to, like, 3D rendering, including some that simulate fluids and gases, and I really want the laser effect to be able to, like, punch through clouds and things like that, and actually, like, realistically disrupt the atmosphere as it goes through. So I'm really excited to try that. And then I'm also planning on trying to do some basic CGI with some of the ships. It won't be too complicated. It'll be, some really simple designs and not a lot of moving parts. But I would like to learn how to put some more effort into that and actually, like, have the environment realistically reflect on the ship and have it look real rather than... At the moment, we kind of... there's definitely a kind of a valley you can settle into of, like, well-done, cheesy effects, and I feel like I'm pretty good at those. And occasionally, when I really want to get into, doing effects work, I'm able to make things that look legitimately good. But just on my average day, like, I've gotten the good quality cheesy effects down pretty solid, I think. For Skyvault, I don't want that at all. I want it all to look really realistic and be very convincing. Green Gaming, I don't know if he's asking me, but he asked, do you think we will reach the fundraiser goal? I legitimately don't know at this point. It's kind of like a coin flip for me. And my general mood at this point is I really just want the coin to stop flipping so I can see what the result is and move on from there. I'm exhausted. This has been a very tiring month. If it works, I have a plan. If it doesn't, I also have a plan. It's just not knowing which one it's going to be that's bothering me at this point. I would really like to get started with Skyvault as soon as possible because I can, and I think it's something that's, that we can do and that deserves to be made, that's worth making. If it doesn't work out, I won't be completely bummed out because we have other things we can do, but I am really, like, looking forward to working on it, and it would be great to be able to do it this year. Use Avatar, you really are your worst critic. Yes. Everybody is. That's how that works. Nobody likes their stuff as much as other people can, because you know all the cracks. You're building it from the ground up, so you know that, like, you know, every little. That's another thing that I actually had to learn when it came to saving time, and it's I picked up from watching Freddie Wong show off some of his old special effects. Is just stuff that you skip. I'm trying to think of. I wonder if I have a good example actually of things that I've just cut corners on that you may not have noticed. See if just like scrolling through some of this footage gives me any particular idea. What else have I done effects for? I need to bring up some more stuff to show you guys. I feel like I haven't actually been like showing off much of anything. I can probably go for like another half hour here or something, and I can bring up some more footage. Guys, start throwing out some videos if you want anything. Like if you just want to see behind the scenes, like just raw footage or special effects on some videos, give some suggestions. I'll pull them up here. Let's see, Civ 6, no. I know there are some examples of things that I haven't, that I've like messed up on, or not messed up on, just haven't put a lot of effort into, but I cut corners in just the right places that people don't always notice that it doesn't actually like work as well as it seems to at first. Oh hey, there's also footage here that I have from videos that haven't been released yet. We filmed 2 videos back in October, and then started doing our every other week schedule thing for those 3 months. And so we still haven't released these videos, but they're slated to go up later this year. But we did this entire green screen video of Ark, like the game Ark, and I haven't touched it. We shot all this footage and I haven't done anything yet. It's got Rachel and Allison in it riding dinosaurs, and it's gonna be this really cheesy, like Flash Gordon style. Like I've got like plastic dinosaurs they're gonna be sitting on, and they've got these ridiculous outfits. So I'm really looking forward to that one. That one's gonna be a lot of fun. And we've got what was the other one? It was there was one we did with Weeble. Was it bomb timers or something? There's oh there it is, White Lightning HQ. Yeah, we got a whole spy one with me and my spy get up again. And then Weeble sent us some footage that I'm gonna put on like a big screen. He's gonna be like the villain talking to us, or talking to me. It'll just be me and him in that video. Those will be coming out, I think, probably in a couple months. Finally, it's been forever since we filmed those. It's really weird, like that I've never had footage sitting around that long. That actually reminds me, I have a really old video that there's one video we never released because it's just not good compared to our current. Like it's just by the time we could have maybe put it out, it just wasn't up to quality standard. But it was one that I filmed with Reed way back when. Let's see if I still have it. SimCity. Maybe I know I have it somewhere. I don't throw things away. It was a Slender Man video that we filmed at this vacation home on my flip camera, and I did special effects for it, and I just never got it done in time. It would have been uploaded before we started working on the guards themselves. It was that old. But I did like a weird stop motion Slender Man in it. So I was going to see if I could find that and pull it up, but I don't actually see the folder in here, so I have no idea where I put it if it's not in here. Oh, there it is. There we go. It was black and white. It was, this whole video. God, I cannot believe I totally forgot about this. So this was the video. I was testing out different frame rates also just to see how it looked. It's so grainy and garbage, and it's at this old house that we stayed at like on vacation, and it was just like this weird horror thing. Like the lights go out, and it would have been the only thing Reed ever starred in probably. This is him from back in high school.
and I was just planning on editing in all these different Slender Man like clips from this little stop motion doll that I had for a while up until I moved to San Antonio. Actually, I finally threw it away. And I just decided to make it like this old black and white 1920s style kind of like horror thing with we drew all the pictures and got this already, and I did this. I built this model out of like clay and gauze and all these weird different things that I shot. The joke was it was a whole horror thing. He goes out, he gets like scared by Slender Man, and he gets caught by him in the middle of the night or something, and then it switches to morning, and then this is the house we were staying at, which is a really nice place. He's like out there hiding and sneaks back into the house, and then when he comes around the corner, the idea here, which I never finished, was Slender Man's sitting on the couch just watching TV, and the TV's static and he can't get it to work, so he's just like hitting the remote over and over. And then I think he tries to hand read his book back or something, and Reed's not having any of it. But yeah, this one never actually got published because I just didn't finish it in time, and by the time I had time to finish it, it didn't work. And there was that nice old gunshot gag. I had this was my my reference for the animation when I was doing this. I did it in Flash first so that I could I knew exactly what to do each frame when I was doing it in stop motion. I don't think I ever actually put any of it into the project, but I don't remember exactly. Kate says, please do more stop motion. I actually started with stop motion. That's not on my channel anymore. The first thing I ever did... So the first thing I ever saw was Nox clay animations. That's what got me into internet videos. I was super obsessed with those, and I wanted to make the same thing myself. I don't even know where to find that. I know I have it somewhere. I think it might be on a separate storage drive. The first idea I came up with was very similar. It was a clay world kind of a thing, and I tried doing stop motion back then. There's the slug thing, the Alfred the slug or whatever is on my channel still. If you go check on that, like really early videos, I think that's still on there, which was another one I tried to do. At some point, I realized that stop motion kind of sucked, because if they fell over, you had to start again, and that wasn't any fun. So I ended up switching to 2D animation, which I had much more control over. But I still really liked the medium, and I'm really impressed by people who are able to do it well. Let's see what else I have here. Something else with fun special effects. Or just cool raw footage. Excessive accessories, Door Monster. If you guys have any suggestions or requests, please let me know. I think some of you may have actually said some and I missed them. Let's see, D&D Forgotten But Not Gone. Let's try that one out. Maybe in 2018, yeah? Short rest? No, that would have been end of 2017. This one. Salfer says the stop motion in Kubo was amazing. I actually still haven't watched Kubo. I really wanted to, and never got around to it. I'm pretty sure it's on Netflix, and I should probably just watch it at some point. Jacob Morat asks, what was the point of Cup and String? The point was to collaborate with Tim Kish, and it was achieved, and I am happy with it. I was very happy with the way that one went. Honestly, that was a really fun... That one and the Yogscast one were super fun experiences because they felt like... It's different for me watching those because they feel a little bit like the other person's videos. I just happen to be in them. Like I think they worked really well as collaborations because they combine both of our styles very effectively, and it's fun working with other people that do the same thing, as it turns out. I guess that's probably not a shocker, but I would like to do it a lot more if I can hopefully meet some more people that also do sketch stuff. I still have one written out that I want to do with Dom Farah that he has expressed interest in doing, but has been so busy the last few months we haven't been able to do it. But I've had the script written since last summer, and hopefully we'll be able to get to that sometime this year, because that would be super cool. After Effects, respond. Load the thing. This one is significantly less complicated than the last one. There is no reason for this behavior. Grim Plays Games suggests working with Rooster Teeth. That would be cool. I haven't been able to get into contact with them before in my past attempts. It probably would be worth trying again. Honestly, I'm actually not all that personally familiar with Rooster Teeth. I kind of watched some of the Red versus Blue stuff. So actually, that's the main problem. I didn't get into Halo until like 2009, so I missed the whole period where that stuff was coming out, and that was like a common experience for people my age to have. So I didn't get in on the ground floor in that same way. So I'm honestly, I'm actually just not that familiar with their other work or the people behind it. I would still really like to work with them because I obviously know about their reputation and do like what I have seen, and I think a lot of the other crew like them a lot. Jeffrey's really a big fan of theirs. I don't know why this isn't opening. You're disappointing me, After Effects. I'm trying to show the good people some stuff, and you're not letting me do it. Go away. Go away. There we go. Alright, let's try this again. Derek Algar asks, speaking of the guards themselves, how do you feel about having raised 4K for that project compared to where you're at now with Skyvault? Completely blown away, and slightly not sure that I'm not just like haven't dreamed the last 3 years, honestly. It is we've occasionally, like, I've been thinking like, today was a slow day, we didn't get much today. But didn't get much today usually means only got about as much as we got for the entirety of the guards themselves, which is ridiculous. There we go. And here's exactly the effect I wanted to look at. So this one was interesting. I don't remember why we decided to do this. This one, honestly, like, there's not a whole lot to show off with this one. I don't feel like we've got Rachel. We had Rachel's face, just kind of sitting on a chair here, and Allison did this whole tree, bark like makeup thing, and she just held her head as still as she could and recited the lines, and then I just found like a portion of this tree kind of cut around it in this, like, where I saw some breaks in the bark so that it, looked kind of realistic that way. Put her face there and put some shadows in it, and that's pretty much it. This was this is the like the nice high quality cheesy effects I was talking about. Like I'll put the effort in to make sure they they look as good as possible. But in the end, it's still somebody's face stuck in a tree, so it only goes so far. Excuse me. I'm recovering from lots of allergy problems. Sergio Anderson says he just made a $25 donation. Thank you, Sergio. I really appreciate that. Blitz Derhund says, what will Skyvault be coming out on, Amazon or something? We would really like to get it onto an online streaming service. I don't know which one yet. What I learned is that it's much easier to get it onto a service if it already exists, and then just being able to sell it to them, than trying to pitch it to them and having them fund it. which is why we're doing it the way that we are. Like, it's much more difficult, like, trying to go to Netflix and being like, we have this idea that we'd like to, to make a Netflix original of, especially when we aren't really anybody worth noting yet. On YouTube, we're doing okay now, but it's hard to transition that into, like, please give us lots of money to make a thing for your platform with no real evidence that we can do that. So the way to do it is to make it and then, sell it to the platform, and that's significantly easier because they don't have to do a whole lot, and they get some more content, and then you've got it on Netflix. And I totally think that would work, because I've seen some of the stuff on Netflix, and there's plenty of stuff below my personal quality threshold, I think. So I think we would be able to get something like... We would be able to make something a good enough quality at this point to be able to get onto a streaming service, I think, for sure. I don't know which one. I don't know which one would want it or the easiest way to do that, but... the plan is to definitely get, find a distributor and get it onto a more well-known platform like that. Let's see. Emma asks, when you have to add in special backgrounds, for instance in Skyrim, do you use various stock footage or do you create it yourself? I use stock footage a lot, actually. It's very, very useful. It's been completely worth having a subscription to a stock footage website for me, because if I do need a background, I can usually just go find a video clip and download it of locations that I can't reach myself, because I really only, I only have Texas, and if I want it to be convenient and doable within the week, I only have, like, immediate area of Texas. Sometimes I also just use game backgrounds, but a lot of times it's very rarely footage that we go get ourselves, because if we can go get the footage easily, then we usually just go film there. There isn't really a reason to do a green screen. Someone asks, what is the money counter going for, and what is the end goal here? It's for Skyvault. It is a project that we're currently working on, which is a very big, ambitious series. A space adventure about 3 people exploring this kind of fictional set of solar systems based on Texas. It's kind of Indiana Jones style adventure serial with a different adventure every episode, where we get to kind of reveal the world through different characters and different exciting events. And we are trying to raise money through Kickstarter. We're doing pretty well so far. We're almost 2/3 of the way through. The big bar is the progress to our next milestone, which we're marking as I spaced out depending on per item. So like right now we're working on the salary for the second protagonist, and then the gold bar is how close we are to our actual goal. That's the one that we need to hit the top, and if we hit our goal, we get all of the funding and we can actually go about making it. If we don't get any of the money, and we do something else this year. But it's been going pretty good so far. We've got about 10 days left still, and we've got a marketing team on the job, and I don't know. I'm really curious to see how it goes. I was hoping when we first started that we would be able to get some of our stretch goals, but at this point, it's really just kind of up in the air about whether or not we'll hit the goal at all. If we do, we will put up more funding methods afterwards so that we can still keep bringing in money over the next few months. Yoon's Avatar asks, do you envision Skyvault as a complete story now? I know you've mentioned the possibility of later seasons. Yeah, I have a complete story arc across 3 seasons. The story is a 3-season story. This would be the first one if we manage to make it. It's kind of like, I think Ian described it as like when Netflix is trying to buffer something. Right now it's the really pixelated version, and all we need to do is like sharpen it. And the sharper it gets, the better it looks currently. I'm really happy with everything that we have, and the more we refine it, the better it gets. Derek Allgaier asks, if you could do a collaboration or have any celebrity in any one of your skits, who would you prefer to work with? That's a really good question. I think aside from YouTube people, because I have a whole list of other YouTubers I would like to do things with. Off the top of my head, I don't know if this is like the best correct answer, but off the top of my head, it would be amazing to do something with Stephen Colbert. It's probably just such a random person to pick, but he, like, of all the, like, I for the most part, celebrity actors, I don't necessarily like, I don't know. I've never been like really interested to meet celebrity actors. I would be obviously interested to meet people that, you know, are in my line of work and stuff, but I've usually been more interested in YouTubers because I just kind of relate to them more. I've always loved everything Stephen Colbert has done and would love to meet him at all, much less do anything with him. On the probably, you know, lower end of the fame spectrum, Matthew Mercer would also be really cool to meet and do stuff with, which that's not too far outside the reach of reality. He's friends with Mark and we from the Oxcast, and we know him now, so maybe through the chain eventually we'll be able to meet him. I have, again, there's a whole list of YouTubers that I'd really like to meet. Anthony and Ashley Birch are inspirations of mine. I would like to meet them and kind of and do something with them. The Rocket Jump and Quarter Digital obviously are huge inspirations and do basically everything that we want to do just a few years ahead of us. Tom Ska is somebody that I would still like to meet, as is Julian Smith. They're both like early sketch inspirations that I would think it would be super cool to do videos with them. Sergio's asking, what about a director? I need to have more solid opinions on people in the industry I'm a part of. But director-wise, it's I actually don't know a whole lot about individual movie directors, even about the movies that I like. I have to. I'm actually more interested in writers, I think, than I am in directors, because that's the part that I'm most interested in personally. I think working with Jon Favreau would probably be really awesome. He does a lot of my favorite movies, as it turns out, and just seems like a cool guy to make something with. Let's see what else we have. I think probably getting close to the end of my time here. I was kind of hoping to be able to go through some more stuff, but maybe I can do another one again in the future, and we can go over some additional projects. For now, if I can take just like a few, like 10-15 minutes just to answer questions, if you guys have anything you want to ask about, preferably about like filmmaking or any kind of step of that process. If you have any questions that you need help with, or just curious about how we do things, I'd be very happy to answer you and to bring up any visual aids that I have here on the computer. Code TR says, I stumbled on my first DM video 3 days ago. Well, welcome. Glad to have you. That's super cool. He says, greetings from Russia. Don't know if I'll donate $10 for me, a different sum of money, but I really want to, at least $5. If you can donate any amount, that'd be super helpful, and if you can't, if you can even just share it, that's also really helpful. Just spreading the word around at this point is going to help us out a lot and bringing in some new people. Let me get my music going again. iTunes. CJK asks, how do you film the finales? Those are, they kind of vary by year, but those are usually very complicated. We have in the past the first two, or first three, I guess. It was mostly entirely new footage, and then occasionally I would do the effect where I edit us into the background of existing footage, which is we set up a green screen, we try to match the lighting from that shot, and then I go and edit that in. Or if we still have access to the location, we set the camera up in the exact same angle at the same time of day and record ourselves, and then just splice the footage together. In the most recent one, what we actually did was go back and get unused footage from past videos. So like all of the new stuff from the What video was actually just takes that I didn't include in the original one, and then we just added a couple of extra new shots into that. And I did that with a lot of other videos too. We just went back and got clips that I ended up not using for either timing reasons, or it just ended up not fitting, or the effects were too hard, so I wasn't able to include it. And yeah, other than that, it's basically just a sketch, but really long. That's the main problem, is that time, like the length of the video adds, you know, it directly affects the length of the work. So When it's a 8-minute video, it takes much longer because we have to film a lot more. I have to do it. They're usually really effects heavy, so that takes forever. Lady Fielder asks, have you ever been in a play? I actually never did theater in school. I was much more into art and drawing and making comic strips and kind of keeping to myself. I kind of wish that I had. I may have turned out differently if I did, I'm not sure, but I never did any kind of like professional acting or even school acting. I would kind of be interested to try it now that I've had as much experience as I have, because I think I have a lot of experience now, but it's weird, isolated experience, and it's only doing my own work. So I would be curious to try just doing some kind of, whether it's theater or even just like acting improv classes or something. It's something that I kind of want to look into. I think it would probably help improve my own performance this year. So it's something I'll probably look into. Emma asks, any advice on people starting out for the first time in filming? And Hi with Thunny asks, how do you balance perfectionism and deadlines? And I kind of have a similar answer to both of those questions, I think. I think the general advice when you're first starting out is to throw perfectionism out the window and not worry about it at all. The fastest way you can get better is just by making stuff. And the more stuff you can make, the faster that's going to go. So don't worry about making things good, because you won't. They're going to suck. It doesn't matter how much work you put into them, they're going to be garbage. So just jump in and just start making stuff from beginning to end, finish it, have it be done, and then do something else. Once you've obviously developed enough of a skill, there are moments you're going to want to spend longer on things. Like Skyvault, I'm not going to have that same policy on. And that comes down to, I think, it's just kind of understanding your own limitations. I try to keep that deadline idea down as much as possible, and I'm gonna have to use that in Skyvault too. There's a point where you just have to stop on anything, because you could spend forever fine-tuning something and just trying to make it slightly better and better, but then it will never exist. This is actually the Duke Nukem Forever problem. This is what happened with the developers of that game, is they kept insisting that it be the best thing available, and then 2 years into working on it, surprise, a new technology would exist to make the game better, so they would scrap it and then start over with this new system, which means they never got done. And eventually went broke and out of business, and another company bought it and made it in a year, and it was okay. So, I don't know, there's a point where, like, perfectionism isn't really helpful, and it's, the more that you do, the better you get at making things look good fast. So I honestly just like spending as much time as possible just making a lot of stuff helps with the perfectionism down the road, because it gives you the ability to achieve what you want much quicker, and then the deadlines don't seem like quite as much of a problem. Let's see. What's your favorite editing trick? I don't know about favorite, but the one I use most often is, I'm forgetting the correct word, but it's like splicing together different footage. We actually use that to save money pretty often, because sometimes we'll need multiple copies of one costume or a prop, and that's expensive. So what we do instead is just use one, and then just have the camera set up, and have, like, you know, one person holding the prop on this side of the screen, and then one person holding the prop on the other side of the screen, and then I just combine them, and then boom, we have two props, and only had to pay for one. So actually, it's a great money-saving technique, so I probably end up using that one much more than any of the others. Well, I think, unless anybody else has some additional questions, I'll probably go ahead and sign off for now. This evening, Allison and Rachel are still doing their baking stream. I think Allison is working on getting the cakes ready right now, actually. I'd be happy to do another filmmaking, like, film school stream at some point if I have some time. I don't know if I'll be able to fit it in this month, but maybe even in the future I can just do another one. But yeah, be sure to tune into that one tonight. I might pop in on that one also. And yeah, thanks for joining. I really appreciate it. Thank you for everybody who's donated while this was going on. I can see that we've gone up a few, at least a couple $100 since we started. So thank you guys. And let me just double check the questions here real quick to see if there's any final ones. Chewy Gamers asked, could you upload this? I missed it at the start. Yes, I will be uploading this afterwards. It'll be, you can find this and any of our other streams in the playlist. There's a Skyvault Fundraising livestream playlist on the front page of our channel, and wherever they haven't been uploaded, they will all be included in that playlist, so you can just watch them in chronological order. I'm a little bit behind. I'm trying to upload the Mass Effect stream, which is huge because it was 8 hours long, so I'm trying to convert that right now and running into some problems, but I'll have that and this and everything else up there as soon as possible. Cameron asks, what are you going to have for lunch? Don't know, but I am very hungry, so I'm probably going to go do that. So yeah, thank you guys for showing up. And I will, I guess I'll just talk to you all later.